Man, this season is so much better than the last one. Everybody played their part this season, and you two didn't do anything! Hey guys, this is Lyoko Gem and welcome to another video. We're back to talk about more RWBY, and what better way than to continue things with a review from your favorite Hunts gem. Last time we talked about Volume 1 and said that it was okay, but nothing to write home about. Now we're in Volume 2, and has that changed? Well, let's get down to it. So Volume 2 picks up after some sort of school break. My guess is the equivalent of winter break, as our heroes begin their second term at Beacon Academy. Of course, our bad guys are working on their nefarious schemes in the background as Roman and company move on from Dust and are now focused on gathering Grimm and working with the White Fang. It goes even further to the point that Cinder infiltrates the school along with two new characters, Emerald and Mercury, under the guise that they're from another kingdom for the Big Bad Vital Festival tournament that will be happening next season. So the heroes are hard at work to try and stop the White Fang, and Blake overworks herself to the point of exhaustion, and they have a school dance, and the season ends with a field trip that ends up with a Grimm invasion that quickly ends with the heroes gathering together, and Roman Torchwick getting arrested. It's all fun stuff. This season's plot is definitely better than Volume 1's, as the characters are actively making moves to try and stop the threat that is the White Fang, and the villains also continue to have some of their stuff. And to go as far as to have it cause a bit of discourse in their own team with what happens with Blake is great. The season feels like it had more thought put into it than the exposition that Volume 1 did. The characterization is also much better here as well. RWBY is still your main character, who really doesn't have much to her, which is unfortunate. Weiss does get a little more development with her love arc with Mercury, and that's kinda cool. Sun is there and gets the love plot with Blake. He doesn't really do anything outside of this, and the same can be said of Neptune. The villains are your typical villains. They're there to be bad and putting up the facade of being nice to the heroes. Cinder is interesting, but most of her character stops outside of her nefarious schemes. The same can be said of Mercury and Emerald, but Roman Torchwick is still thriving with character, and I love him for that. But the characters that really shone this season are the following. First up, we have the newcomer, General James Ironwood. And I gotta say, when I first watched the season, I didn't think much of him. But it was on my second watch through of the show that I loved him, and the third time around, oh man, it was even better. While I know most of the fandom dislikes General Ironwood, I happen to like him and think that his character was used well here. Not only does he effectively introduce the concept of Atlas and their military, but he acts the part here as well. His conversations with Ozpin and Glinda really give way to more world building and the greater secrets that the show is hiding and will be explored in the next two volumes. I happen to really like General Ironwood and think that he was one of the better characters this season. The same goes for Ozpin too. Then there's Professor...
It's Dr. Oobleck.
Sorry, Dr. Oobleck. Of all the characters to be introduced over the course of Volume 1, Oobleck and Port were some of my favorites, as they were just fun characters. Yeah, they didn't do much, but they were nice and simple, and I think they were done really well. Now color me surprised when in this volume they use Oobleck again and actually give him some development? What? The end of Volume 2 stands as one of my favorite arcs in the show, and Oobleck is actually one of the main reasons for that. Not only do we learn about Oobleck's character motivations, but we see that he's actually a pretty great guy and an even better teacher. He might be a little odd, but Dr. Oobleck was one of my favorite characters this season. Plus, he provided one of my absolute favorite scenes in the show and one of my absolute favorite episodes with the whole "why do you want to be a huntress" scene. Then, getting a little closer to home, we've got John and Pyrrha, who I've paired together. Like last season, these two are some of the frontrunners for the most interesting characters of the season, but just barely missed the mark. This season, not only do they continue with their lessons from last season in an attempt to get John better at fighting and aura and all of that stuff, but we also learn more about Pyrrha and what her life was like as the girl born for victory and how that's left her lonely. We get some special scenes between her and John, and both of them are shown to be super cute and fun together. This is where I officially started shipping them. John and Pyrrha are just so nice this season. And the best characters of the season, of course, had to be Blake and Yang. Now, this is one of the few times I'm going to say Blake was one of the best. But Volume 2 was very much her time to shine, and I loved it. From the beginning with her obsession with the White Fang, it shows that it's very personal to her, which is great, and of course, leading into her overworking herself to the point of exhaustion. As a writer myself, this is a story arc I've always loved, seeing a character be so passionate or desperate about something that they've been led to the point of exhaustion, and I think they pulled that off very well here. And Yang really stepped it up and showed that not only is she a good person, but a good character as well, as she helped Blake, learned more about her past, and started her on the path where she became my favorite of the 4 main girls. This arc was great, and it really showed a lot of development for Blake and Yang, which was great. But that's really all I've got to say about characters and plot. How about the other stuff? Action is better than ever, and we had some pretty great fight scenes here, like the final fight in Breach, or Pyrrha soloing most of Team Cardinal and stuff like that. Action is on par with, if not better than Volume 1. And then there's music, which honestly, it's still good, but not as great in this volume as it was in the last one, I won't lie. We definitely have some great songs in there with the opening and all, but as far as instrumental tracks go, they're not as good as the previous volume, or any of the others for that matter, and don't do as much for a scene, with a few special exceptions, of course. Overall, I'll have to say that RWBY Volume 2 is a step up from Volume 1, but not by much. Story is good and all, but it still suffers from things such as awkward dialogue and the like. So for that, I'll have to give it a 6.25 out of 10, simply because 6 felt too low and 6.5 felt too high. So there we go. Volume 2 is a lot of fun, and is a story of continuing to grow up with these characters, but at the end of the day, it was time to say goodbye. But that's what I think about RWBY Volume 2. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks so much for watching. If you like this video and want to hear more from Lyoko Gem, then please like, subscribe, and follow my social media, Tumblr, Twitter, and Discord, all linked below. But with all of that being said, this has been the Lyoko Gem, warping out.